Welcome back to Earth Station Trek, a show where we trek from the early days on NBC to the future on Paramount Plus and everywhere in between. I'm Charles Kelso, and it's my privilege to introduce the Earth Station Trek crew, Alan Seiler.
Make it so.
And Veronica Daschel.
Hi.
And we're a man down this week. Keith couldn't be with us, but best luck out there, Keith. We hope you're doing well, and we'll see you next week.
Right on.
But welcome back to the Captain Picard Week Podcast Festival.
Woohoo!
Yay!
Awesome.
Yeah, we were part of the festival last year, and it was a lot of fun. And they graciously invited us to come back and talk about Picard.
Yeah, it's very exciting.
I don't understand why this is the subject for tonight. I mean, I know it's Picard week. Is there a connection? I don't understand. I don't get it.
Wait about a week and you'll find out.
Good point.
And it looks like in our comments, we have some first-time listeners to EST.
Oh, sweet.
So, hello and welcome, guys.
Yeah. Well, if you're not familiar with our show, we've been going for about 2 years. And I mean, we just talk about Star Trek, all Star Trek, old Star Trek, new Star Trek, any Star Trek. We're fans of Star Trek, you should say. And we're part of the ESO podcast network. And we go out weekly and we do live shows on Thursdays talking about the latest episodes. And we'll deep dive into the old stuff. And we just have a great time.
Yeah.
So, hi, Haven Studios. And hello, Tara. Nice to see both of you.
Yeah.
Yay.
Thank
So
you guys
just
for
to-
joining us.
Yeah, just to let everybody know, if there's people watching who want to throw in comments or questions throughout the show, we are live. We are taking whatever you want. So if you have something you want us to talk about, throw it in. We will get to it.
That's right. And tonight we're going to be talking about Picard's career, but before and after the Enterprise, which I think is
Doesn't
pretty
exist.
fascinating. Right, because we think of Picard for those 15 years of his career that he served on the Enterprise.
Yeah.
But I mean, Picard, he was in his 90s in Star Trek Picard, and he went off to the Academy as probably 18 years old. I mean, that's
Right.
70, 80 years of Starfleet career, and we only saw about 15 years of it. So I think it's pretty fascinating to look at sort of who he was and what he was doing when he wasn't on the Enterprise.
Exactly. We have one question, though, but it's
Okay.
not about Picard. It's about us.
Yay!
When on Thursdays are your live shows, as I am here on Strange New Pod every week in their shows. Well, we do ours Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern.
That's right. And I believe Strange New Pod still goes out at 9:30. So we're not in conflict. So if you watch Star Trek, want to have an evening of watching people talk about Star Trek and joining in the conversation, you're welcome. You're welcome for both.
Awesome.
And we also have Miss Powell family saying, thanks for, my gosh, there's comments coming in. Thanks for the topic. I've forgotten his early history. And she also says, new listener. Woohoo!
Yeah, well,
Thank
welcome.
you.
We're happy to have you with us.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, want to go back to Picard's
The
early days?
Stargazer.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Stargazer, but really we could go before the Stargazer.
Absolutely. So look, we
Back
will
to his
definitely
Academy
get to the
days.
Stargazer.
Yeah, we'll definitely get there. I mean, Picard joined the Academy, and I mean, from the descriptions of what we got on the show, he was a very different guy than the Picard that we knew from the TV show.
Yeah.
He seemed like he's much more of a Kirk figure when he was, cocky, arrogant, very athletic, running marathons and wrestling.
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting to sort of look at it as we're going along and how Picard evolved into the man that we know.
Yeah. And we know from watching the show that a lot of it had to do with that attack in the bar, the knife stab to the heart, basically. And
Right.
and the way that and I think that's so interesting that the show took that step of showing what he was like before and showing the thing that changes the course of his personality, basically, and makes him that more thoughtful, that more cautious, but at the same time, a very proactive person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering also how much of it was Starfleet was changing, because if you look back at Kirk's time, Kirk was apparently the bookish nerdy kid in Starfleet, and he turned into Kirk.
Yeah.
So it may be that when Picard was a kid, he was looking up to the Kirks of the world, and Starfleet changed.
Yeah. And that's a good point that you guys are making, because I mean, it's one thing to be sort of, brash and cocksure and arrogant as a young man heading out into the universe. But then, I mean, you take a stab to the heart, for instance.
Yeah,
and
that'll change you.
Yeah, suddenly it's
does.
real. Yeah.
I mean,
it's
really easy as if I've had one, but
No.
Right. Well, it's really easy to talk smack at over a Dom Jock game at Starbase Earhart, but when you actually get stabbed through the heart, and it's like, well, maybe I should have a little more reserve and caution with what I'm doing.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, we know a little bit about Picard's time at the Academy. We know Boothby was there, and
Boothby.
yeah, and we know that from Picard's own mouth that he almost didn't graduate. Boothby had to sort of talk him through some crises, but I think it's interesting to think of Picard as a guy like not getting the homework done. You know, you wouldn't imagine Jean-Luc Picard not getting his homework in on time.
Right, because how many times do we see him on the show doing the homework, whether it be studying archaeology or preparing to speak insect to, you know, some delegate that he has to do, and Troy is like, no, the clicks mean this, and you know, and he's like, and he's working at it, and it's funny to think of him in the Academy. Of course, you know, there's a different time of life, and when you're in college, you want to do college, but you also want to do college, you know. And it's fun to think of him that way as the you know, I don't know how much of a party animal he was, but you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it may not be that he wasn't turning assignments, and that's my assumption. But I mean, you think of Picard as an older guy, and he's the kind of guy who, in his leisure time, is reading Shakespeare and listening to opera. You know what I mean? You don't think of him as sort of the wild young guy, or as necessarily as an athlete. You know, that's something that they mentioned several times about Picard. He was a wrestler. He was the first, you know, underclassman to win the marathon. I mean, that he was like a young sort of sports guy.
About the Academy, let's see. First of all, crazy to think that he was only 22 years old when he lost his heart based off of Memory Alpha.
Right.
And considering how often they kept Wesley out, they should have high standards in the Academy once cadets start.
Yeah. That's very true. I mean, it's probably you can't get away without turning in too many assignments. That may be an incorrect assumption on my part, but yeah, I mean, the people who make it to the Academy are the best of the best of the best. And now
sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say we saw a few cadets, you know, while we've been watching Star Trek, who have been sort of allowed in and made their way in. But I mean, from that testing that we watched Wesley go through, Picard would have had to go through quite a bit to get just in the door. You know,
exactly. And am I remembering incorrectly? Did he not make it in the first time he applied, or did he almost not make it in the first time?
Oh, I don't remember.
Because you remember in that episode where Wesley is like, you know, I didn't get into the Academy, and he said, I'll confess to you, I didn't either.
I do.
Isn't that right?
I do remember that. I think that you're right about that. So yeah, I mean, the Academy is a very competitive school just to get into, and I imagine to stay, you got to stay ahead of the curve. But
that's interesting that Nog got in on his first try.
Yeah, true.
I wonder
how that much is. I was going to say, I wonder how much of that is. Hey, there's a Ferengi that actually wants to be in Starfleet. Let's make that happen.
I wonder if that also has something to do with sponsorship too, because he had Captain Sisko speaking on his behalf. Did Picard have someone? You know, who
Why did Wesley have someone?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Picard's family wasn't particularly supportive of him going.
Yeah,
you know, so it's not like even his dad's gonna write a letter of recommendation for him. You know,
or that he even necessarily knew someone to.
Right? Yeah, he's just coming off the street. So yeah. I mean,
the street.
Right off the transporter pad.
Right on
from his vineyard.
Right.
And the castle at the vineyard.
Well, after Starbase Earhart, I mean, you know, that's his basically on leave after the Academy. He gets stabbed through the heart. He gets his artificial heart. And I mean, we don't see a lot of what happened to Picard for the next few years. We know that he served on the USS Reliant, and, you know, he knew Nakamura there, who we saw later as an admiral. But, you know, sort of, I mean, I expect he's just doing your typical, you know, lower rank officer things, you know?
Yeah. Tara asks, wasn't Wesley younger than normal and they wanted him to wait, or did she invent that in her head?
Yeah, that sounds right. I know that Wesley was about 15 in season 1. So he's probably 16, maybe 17 by the time that he's heading off to the Academy. But for the first time he tested, he probably was like 16. But I would expect that, I would expect them not so rigid about the educational system in the future if you're able to perform and you're able to pass the test. But I mean, like, his Benzite buddy had to go through the same testing, and so I don't think that they were singling him out, but certainly that he didn't get a free ride into the academy either.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think it was interesting to see Wesley going through those steps because, even if you have the intellect at a younger age, you might not necessarily have the emotional maturity. So it was cool to see Wesley in that situation where he, is being shown that how much he has learned just from his, at that point, year on the Enterprise. He did have a maturity in a lot of ways that maybe another kid his age wouldn't have.
True. Yeah. And a service record, which a lot of kids his age
exactly
don't have.
Right. And he still didn't get in.
Right. Yeah.
Shoot. Haven says, I think Nog needed a sponsorship letter similar to an H-1B visa in the United States, but I would assume Picard did not because of being human from France. Well, that's possible.
Well, we know for a fact that that's why Nog, because he's not a citizen, he had to have an officer. But now, how much that helps him get in or not get in, right? You would presume that he still had testing to go through and that sort of thing. They didn't spend a lot of time on that.
Yeah.
But,
I would love to have seen what his experience was compared to Wesley's. Since we saw Wesley's, it would be neat to see if Nog had to go through some similar test. I mean, he had to have gone,
I'd have watched an entire series of Nog at the Academy. I'm not going to lie.
Can you imagine how great that show would have been?
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this is not the Nog show.
You know what? Every show is the Nog show.
Every show is the Nog show. There you go.
That's right. But no, I mean, then up to the point where Picard, then he ends up on the Stargazer, and he's just an officer just serving until disaster strikes and his superior officers are killed, and he had to take command, and he did.
Yeah.
And became a very young captain in Starfleet.
Yeah.
But it's interesting though at that point that, for one, that it takes a lot, I think, if you're a junior officer to just assume command of the ship. But it wasn't like a field promotion where he wasn't in command of the ship for that mission and then they put another real captain. He stayed in command of that ship for 22 years after that. That says a lot about
that was long.
him,
Right.
So he basically served as captain on 2 starships for pretty much his entire career.
Well, he had to rely on, then there's some gaps in there, but
but still.
But it's interesting that his time on the Stargazer is more than his time on the Enterprise.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Miss Powell says, I just started watching The First Duty where, and I'm not going to say JL, where Jean-Luc.
You just did.
I know. Talks to Boothby, and Boothby says that he made a mistake, but we don't know what the mistake was.
Yeah, and that's true. Yeah, we don't know what exactly that he did that got him in hot water, but
it was probably pot.
Maybe.
I don't know.
It was something that was against the rules. We'll say that.
It was pot, and he got it from what's her name? What's her name?
Raffi?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
That's a joke. I don't mean it.
I know.
And Strange New Pod says, sometimes it seems, and okay, fine, I'll say it. JL has alluded to it a bit, that he may have loved the Stargazer more than the Enterprise.
Yeah, well,
it's his first command.
Yeah, and he likened it to like a first love.
Yeah,
like exactly.
Even though the Stargazer is a rickety old ship, and the Enterprise is a luxury liner by comparison, that it's like when you might have a nice practical fancy car as an adult, but you don't remember the little hot rod you drove around in when you were a kid, the old beater that you used to tear around with your buddies in. There's something about that first taste of freedom.
Yeah,
and I'm sure Picard felt that, that time was very special to him. But it's funny that we meet so few people from that time over the course of the show.
And even the few that you do meet, it's like in passing, and you barely catch on that, they're from the Stargazer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. Plus, there's being on an older, more rickety ship just brings its own sense of adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Who really, really wants to go cruising around the galaxy in a luxury liner?
I'll go.
Come on. in a hotel lobby. Come on.
Right. Yeah, I mean the Stargazer. You know what though? It could also be that after the Battle of Maxia, that there weren't a whole lot of his buddies from the Stargazer around.
Very possible.
You know, I mean, they were.
Yeah, that's true.
It was a dangerous time in Starfleet, and we know that it was during that period that he became friends with Jack Crusher, and obviously Jack Crusher's not around to come see him on the Enterprise. You know, and I expect a lot of his comrades from that ship probably met the same fate.
I would imagine so.
Yeah.
Let's see. I don't know how to pronounce this name, so I'm just gonna. I don't know. Kung? I don't know. Anyway, Picard definitely got weepy talking about the Stargazer when he was sharing drinks with Scotty in the holodeck in Relics.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, yeah.
And that's something that those.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was gonna say that's something those two could bond over. You know,
exactly.
It's a love of the old ship. I mean, just like Scotty had served on the Enterprise A, but it's not the same as the Enterprise. You know,
right?
And when no Scotty was stuck serving
B, C, or D.
Right. And when he had to serve for a minute on the Excelsior, he hated it there. This stupid elevator that was being polite to him. Up your shaft.
Haven Studio says, I believe his mistake was when he failed his first entrance exam, which he spoke to Wesley about in Final Mission.
Okay. Yeah.
And then Tara says, at Haven Studios, yeah, but it was because he drank too much red wine, right?
Yep.
Could be.
Well, hopefully Picard's got a tolerance by the time
I
he
would
hits
think
the
so.
Academy. If I was a young man living on a vineyard,
right,
I would have had a nip here and there.
Plus, it's just in the family blood.
That's right. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, he met Jack Crusher while he was serving on the Stargazer and Beverly. And obviously Beverly went on to become a huge part of his life.
Yeah. And Jack too, from what we know. And I would really love to see some episodes set during that time and see those relationships. You know, see the way that he and Jack bonded and the way that he and Beverly sort of like first formed their friendship and you know, whether it ever there was a hint of it like developing into more than that. I would love to see some of that stuff.
Yeah. Well, when he said that, you know, he felt guilt over it because he was in love with his best friend's wife. You know? And that really, I was think that his friendship with Jack and his guilt over Jack's death colored a lot of his relationships with Beverly and with Wesley. I mean, how could it not?
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
Especially watching, you know, your best friend's son growing into a young man. And, you know, I'm sure seeing elements of Jack in Wesley. And, you know, it's one thing that, you know, if you're a commanding officer and you lose someone and you feel a certain amount of responsibility, you know, like, what could I have done? And you're going to question yourself and you're going to reevaluate what you did. But also that officer is your friend. But then also his family ends up on your ship. And it's an everyday thing. You know what I mean? Like, I don't see how you could get away from that, you know, in your mind. Every time you say Mr. Crusher, you're going to think of the older Mr. Crusher.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And that sort of brings up another point too about the love of the first ship as opposed to the Enterprise. You know, he had, especially going in, he had that uncomfortability with families on a starship. And you don't have that extra burden on the Stargazer. So I'm sure that he looked back on that as a time when, you know, that's when things were simple. You just went out in space and did your thing, and, you know, you didn't have to worry about, you know, kindergarten classes and, you know, stuff.
Yeah. Well, because everyone on the Stargazer signed up for service.
Right.
They all took the same oath. They all agreed to be there. And like you said, there wasn't a field trip on deck 6, you know, that you got to worry about when the Borg are chasing you, you know?
Can you imagine the extra weight on your shoulder when you're going into a battle situation or something like that? If it's a full crew that has signed on and know what the risks are, that's one thing. If it's people who have signed on and have kids and something happens, can you imagine?
Right.
Oh my God, I just can't.
Yeah. I mean, they got lucky when the Enterprise D went down that they weren't pulling children out of the rubble, you know, because I mean, we saw they were evacuating children into that saucer section. Little girl dropping her teddy bear, you know, while the Klingons are blowing us out of space, you know.
Exactly. Okay, let's see. The pod says, glad you're here. Oh, she's talking to Michael Kwan, who says Strange New Pod sent him here. He's still at work. Thank you for joining us, Michael. It's nice to have you.
Yeah, we're glad to have you.
Haven Studio says Paramount Plus needs to make a Jack Crusher show and have James McAvoy playing a young Jean-Luc. I'm not going to say JL.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say it. Yeah. That would be so great. That would be wonderful.
And if that'd be a great role for Will Wheaton to play is Jack Crusher. And if you're ever going to give Will Wheaton a show, have him as Jack Crusher and James McAvoy as Picard. Now, I mean, Will Wheaton's
Stargazer.
Quite a few years older than Jack Crusher would be, but he looks 20 years younger than he is, so he could pull it off.
Yeah.
I would watch that.
Yeah.
I would just give Will a show being a traveler. Just see what all kinds of stuff that he would get into and visiting different parts of the Star Trek universe. Oh my God, I would watch the heck out of that show.
Yeah,
and he could literally go anywhere to any of the Star Trek universes of Prodigy or Strange New Worlds.
Now we're just pitching spinoffs.
Exactly. Well, that's one of the things we love to do on our show.
That's right.
Add it to the list.
That's right.
Okay. Let me get this one before we get to the next thing. I'd hate to imagine how many dead or assimilated kids there were after the Battle of 359. Holy smokes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would hope that if they knew they were going into a situation like that, which I think a lot of the ships that came into that did, they would have evacuated the families before.
If they could. Yeah, but I mean, a lot of them were rushing to get there. So, I mean, you got to wonder, if you're near a planet or a starbase where you can drop the families off, great, go evacuate the families. Yeah. But otherwise,
just beam them onto that moon as we pass by.
Right. Yeah. Kids, get under your desk. It's a Borg invasion.
Oh, God, that's funny.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, but he served on the Stargazer for the 22 years until the Battle of Maxia, when it was just essentially destroyed. It was uninhabitable, and they had to evacuate and then limp away in shuttlecrafts. But then you got this 9-year period until the Next Generation that we have very sketchy information about. Yeah, I mean, we know that he was involved with the Cardassian conflict. We got some references to that.
Yep.
Then we know that he met Tasha Yar along the way, but we other than that, we don't get a whole lot of information about that 9-year period. So I'm really interested to see what Picard. I know they covered it in books, but I mean, I would love to find out more about what Picard was doing. How do you go from the captain of the Stargazer, and then 9 years later to the captain of the Enterprise?
Michael Kwan has given us a solution to Wolf 359. He says that they offloaded the kids onto a Cerritos right before the battle. Then the Cerritos got the heck out of there.
Perfect. That's what they're good at.
That's what the California class are good for. That's
right
exactly.
on. Yep.
They totally set that up in the intro too.
Right. Perfect. Stick to your strengths.
Now we know what they were doing there.
Evacuation.
Right.
Exactly. Oh, that's funny. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So by the time he got to the Enterprise, Picard had a heck of a career.
Yes. So here's what they need to do. They need to go the young Sheldon route. They need to do a young Picard series, either set on Stargazer or at some point in his early career or academy or whatever. And maybe McAvoy, I don't know, but have somebody play him, and Patrick Stewart can be there and narrate, just like what's his name does on Young Sheldon. And it won't be a comedy, so don't go that route, but it would be cool to have him because he will still be involved. He will still have that, and he can still maybe make an appearance as himself in the future or whatever, but then have these stories told from that period that we know so little about.
Yeah. They could do it
I think we're onto something here.
Like the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles.
Yeah.
Every episode you've got old man Picard trying to mail a package, or he lost his bus ticket. It would have old Indiana Jones in this really these low risk situations, and reminiscing to someone about the time that he was in the Mexican Revolution or whatever.
He lost his bus ticket. Oh my God.
I think that's
cool. Make the transporter work. How do I make this thing work? No, that would
I'm
be
out of
great. I would
transporter
love that.
tokens. Yeah, let me tell you about the time that the Ferengi attacked.
As long as Laris is on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need her there. That's all.
Okay. Yeah.
That's my requirement.
Okay. I'll let Kurtzman know.
As long as she's
Thank you.
there as a
Get on it,
cranky
Kurtzman.
housekeeper.
Right. What were you saying, Veronica?
As long as she's only there as a cranky housekeeper.
Right. Okay. So you don't want you don't want her
No.
time traveling ancestor.
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Yeah, cranky housekeeper who occasionally turns into badass fighter.
Yes. That is
Anyway.
what I want.
Anyway,
Well, that's a good
Someone to put him in
segue
his place.
because then we get to the Enterprise section, and then we're sort of jumping ahead to his life after serving on the Enterprise.
Yeah.
He was promoted to admiral and was put in charge of the Romulan evacuation, which is, also a heck of a promotion.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's where he meets Raffi, and I think it's interesting that when we meet Picard in season 1, now we do also get some next gen characters along the way, but right off the bat, we're introduced to 2 old comrades of Picard, Dr. Benayoun and Raffi. One from before the Enterprise and one from after the Enterprise. I think it's interesting that because he's got such a long and varied career that, of course, he knows more than the people he knew on the Enterprise. He's got more than 8 friends. He's met more than the people than that along the way. So I think I thought that was a good touch in Picard season 1. That when he needed a doctor, it wasn't just Crusher because she's the only doctor he knows.
Right.
That he's served with other medical officers in his career that he trusts.
Right. Exactly. Michael Kwan asks, I read the one for James T. Kirk, but is the tie-in book, The Autobiography of Jean-Luc Picard, any good?
I'm the same boat as you, Michael. I've read the Kirk one, but I haven't. But now that they've announced the Cisco one, I've got to get back. I've got to read the Picard and Janeway, so I can read the Cisco one too.
And Spock.
Yeah, and Spock. You're right. I forgot about Spock. I was just thinking of captains.
Exactly.
But I think it's fascinating for how people are diving in to these histories and doing what the novelists do so well, which is just filling in the gaps, adding texture.
Exactly. We've not really been in a situation before the current, like past 5 or whatever years, where you have TV series that are able to do the fill in the gap kind of thing.
Right.
That always used to be the purview of the books and the comics and that kind of stuff. And now we have all these 10 episode season long, series where you can have, and the short treks and all that kind of stuff that can add those little bits of color. So, it's not
more
simply
more short treks.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and the way that television has changed, that you can do a 4-episode series if you want.
Exactly.
Or whatever, that they've got that much flexibility now. They really could start picking up some of these little threads and exploring them. I think that'd be a fascinating thing to do.
Tara pitches in that the Janeway autobiography, which is read by Mulgrew, is glorious listening.
Yeah, that's one that I really want to get on the audiobook.
Yes.
Yeah, because that's and if they get Brooks to read the autobiography of Cisco, I'll like.
Can you imagine? That's a tall order because he's.
I know.
Probably not going to agree to do it, but man, if they did, holy smokes!
Yeah, I think we've got it on Audible already in our catalog, and I just haven't gotten to it yet. But I definitely want to listen to that.
I'm waiting for the moment we see Raffi call Picard JL in front of Riker.
I know.
That's going to be amazing. I can't wait to see his face. That is going to be good.
Right. Like when Riker was, it was a deleted scene, but in the deleted scene from Nemesis, when Riker's, meeting his replacement and he tells him, he always likes to be called Jean-Luc. Yeah. Good luck, buddy.
Right.
So it's interesting that, during the Romulan evacuation, he got to the point with Raffi where she could call him JL. And he was comfortable with it.
Right.
Or he didn't stop her enough.
Yeah. Well, do you think that he was
persistent about it?
Right. Well, do you think he was comfortable with it at first, or do you think that she just kept going?
I think she just kept on.
You think that the first few times he's like, Raffi?
Yes. Yes.
Either that, or this was later in life for him, and he's just not as picky about stuff like that anymore.
Yeah. Well, he did mellow a lot during his time on the Enterprise. Season 1 Picard wouldn't be having this JL stuff.
No, absolutely not.
It could also be, too, that, he spent so many years around the same officers. He had his crew who were like a family to him, and then he's off on his own again with new officers. So it could just be that he was looking for that kind of connection, whether Picard is the kind of guy who would admit it or not, that he may admonish her for calling him JL and then smile when she goes out the door, you know,
right?
That they may well have had that kind of a relationship. But I think it's interesting that, you know, he became so invested in this Romulan evacuation.
Yeah.
And was, I mean, we were to assume commanding a fleet, you know, like it was multiple ships involved and a lot of logistics and coordination, which I think he would be good at.
Yeah.
All right, let me get a little backlog.
Okay.
Haven Studio says the Janeway autobiography is absolutely amazing. Loved it so much.
Awesome.
Miss Powell asks, is The Last Best Hope pre-Picard season 1 book canon? And that, of course, brings up the whole thing of, are the novels canon at all?
Right. Because they often do these tie-ins, and they'll even do it with comics, where like a comic prequel to the movie or to the season.
Right.
But then later on, they'll just contradict it anyway.
Yes.
Right.
Because
The books are canon basically until the television show, which is Prime Source, does something to contradict something that happened in the book. The TV show is never beholden to obey what somebody wrote in a book.
Right,
but the books are beholden to obey what has been stated as fact on the show.
Right. And they'll often tie them in for marketing, where they'll say, before you see the movie, read this comic book, or before you watch the series, read this book, you know. But ultimately, when the next season comes along, if they have a different idea or a better idea, they're going with it, you know.
Yes. The reason that she asked that is because that book had a ton of Picard and Rafi's mission to evacuate Romulus.
Exactly right. Yeah. And there was some of that in the Picard prequel comic as well.
Yes. Haven Studios clarifies that Last Best Hope is considered to be semi-canon. Kurtzman has said in the past that they will consider it canon unless the storyline needs it to be decanonized. Yep.
Okay.
Let's see. Also directed to Miss Powell. They've said the books are canon unless they're contradicted on screen, but I'm wondering if they'll confirm from the book that Worf was captain of the Enterprise after Picard.
I don't know.
I think so.
Yeah, I know they carried that over from the old novel universe into the new, but that's a thing that I don't want to get on a tangent too bad, but that's a thing I hope they don't do, because that's because Worf to me gave up his chance at the captaincy when he went back for Jadzia and blew that mission, and he did it knowingly. And I think I'm perfectly happy if he never becomes a captain because of that. I think Worf would be too. I think he would make that choice anyway to give up his career or his prospects of advancement to save Jadzia. But that's not this discussion, so I'll leave that there.
It's about
not to go on a big tangent,
but...
Right.
Oh. I am told that I can pronounce the name Kern.
Okay.
Hey, I can do that. Thank you for the clarification. I very much appreciate it.
Absolutely.
So now I will think of you with head ridges and anyway, never mind. Let's see. Another person we haven't heard from prior to this is David Willett, who says, "Oh, I wish I had the patience time to read more of the books." Me too.
Yeah. That's why I often go ahead.
No.
That's why I often do audiobooks, because I have a lot of commute time. And so that works better for me sometimes than by the time I get home laying down to read and then I fall asleep on page 4.
Yes, I will fall. I used to read constantly, and now I start to read, fall asleep in a few seconds.
Right.
Unless I'm trying to go to sleep, and then I cannot fall asleep, and I'm bored of the book.
That's right.
Commute
Doesn't
time
matter
for
if it looks
me.
Interesting.
Commute time for me is music time. I can't do audiobooks. I do sometimes, but okay.
Yeah.
Strangely Pod says, well, Worf has captain rank pips in the promo picture released today. I didn't know there were new promo pictures released today. I haven't seen
them. I saw them coming out all day, but I was at my office, so I couldn't spend a lot of time on them. But thank you.
Darn work getting in the way of podcasting.
I know. My job doesn't stop when we get new Star Trek promo pics, unfortunately. I wish they should, you know?
Yeah.
All right, everybody, hold on.
Pause.
That's right. Have you all seen this? But yeah, thanks for that. So I guess we'll find out
really.
When Picard starts that what happened to Worf. That's really the exciting prospect of season 3 for me, is seeing what happened to everybody, you know. So unfortunately the Romulan evacuation didn't go so well for Picard, you know.
Nope.
Like Starfleet pulled the plug and he had to sort of stand up on his principles, and he left. But I think it's interesting that he developed such a relationship with the Quat Malat, on Vashti.
Me
and
too.
To the point that he's going there, and visiting with them and spending time, and especially with Elnor, because he's sort of, Picard's always had this thing where sort of longing for a family. They made that clear from episode 1. He's not a family man, and you find out more and more as the series goes along that he sort of regrets that.
Yep. I would love to see more of that explored too. That won't fit into our possible James McAvoy led, early Picard series, but I would love to know more about that that relationship that developed with Elnor and that whole situation with the Quat Malat. I think that's really, really fascinating.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting that, like I say, he developed such a close relationship with the young boy that was there. And but also that once the evacuation was called off and he resigned, he didn't go back.
Yeah, like why didn't you just do Finished Rangers wouldn't be a right fit, but something like that where you're like not part of the Federation but you're still doing good.
Yeah, I mean you could hire a ship. You're Jean-Luc Picard. You can find someone to follow you. You know what I mean?
Right. You probably find like 50 someones to follow you.
Yeah. But it feels to me like, he sort of threw his resignation on the table thinking that they're never going to take it because of his years of service. As we talked about on this show, he went from the Reliant to the Stargazer to the Enterprise to the Admiralty, and then it got to the point where Starfleet was like, okay, yeah, we'll accept your resignation. Bye. And I think he just, well, screw you guys then, and sort of turned his back on the world for a while.
Yeah.
But I think it's unfortunate, but I think it's understandable, that it's sort of like you're at your job for 50 years and you say, well, if you change this policy, I'll quit. And they're like, well, bye. And you're like, well, I've been here for 50 years. You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, what are you guys going to do without me? I'm on the brochure.
Yep.
Well, they'll just have to reprint.
That's right.
The higher ups are like, yeah, well, I've been here for 10 minutes, so bye.
Right. That's unfortunately a lot of times the case, and it's not an exclusive thing to Starfleet that you get the younger folks coming in who don't always appreciate the value of the veterans. And that's something that's sort of universal to across a lot of different kind of organizations.
Yes. Okay, a little bit of backlog.
Go ahead.
Michael Kwan says you can get a rank of captain without being a ship captain, which is true. There are captains who captain things other than starships. So
Scotty
yes, that is absolutely true. Haven Studios says yes, because we saw that in 1701A. Kern says, hasn't it been confirmed that the Enterprise was in the battle where the living construct took over the Starfleet ships? I wonder who was captain then. Yeah, that's a good point. And hey, here's a familiar name. Matt Sweatman says,
hey, Matt Sweatman,
what's up? Just watching and loving the discussion and participation. And he says, hi, everyone.
Hey, everyone. Yeah, Matt is
Sweatman is one of our regulars.
Yeah, he's the past couple of weeks he was on the podcast a few times, giving his insights. So welcome, Matt. Thanks for coming.
Haven says, I believe Strange and New Pod did confirm it during the podcast for Supernova Part 1 and 2. David Willett says, you would like to think Starfleet would value its people more than modern corporations do.
Yeah, you would think so, yeah. But I mean, that's a big part of Star Trek is that people are people. No matter what century it is. That goes back to the earliest Starfleet. The earliest Star Trek pitch was that the human nature hasn't changed. So I think that unfortunately, but good for drama, Starfleet can still fall prey to our own biases and shortcomings. And I think that's a fascinating thing about Star Trek is that we get to see ourselves through this other lens. Dealing with new things. But yeah, I mean, but it looks like, after the events of Picard season 1, he became the Chancellor of Starfleet Academy. We didn't get to see a whole lot of that in season 2 because they started dimension hopping and time traveling, and we got a little away from Starfleet there for a while.
Probably will be timey wimey.
Yeah, but I mean, what do you think that he was? I mean, I guess just what does a Chancellor of Starfleet Academy do?
Make speeches.
Picard is good at that.
Yep.
Yeah, he is. That's true.
Yeah.
Welcomes the new trainees in a big speech when they first come in and congratulates the graduates. And that's the Chancellor C.
Okay. Well, he was also going off to the new Stargazer.
I think that was more
Right.
personal than
Maybe.
Starfleet official.
Maybe.
But I think also, I mean, that was a good way I thought of illustrating that Picard's career is being valued. That there's now a legacy Stargazer as well. It's not just, okay, fine, you can come back in, but look at the new Stargazer, named after the ship that Picard famously commanded, which is it's a rare thing, I would think, that he's served on 2 Enterprises he didn't serve on, but at least boarded 2 Stargazers, And I think it's a great touch that the show threw in there. And that the Stargazer could have been any ship. You could call it the USS Mississippi. You know what I mean? It would have made a difference to the story, but I think it makes a big difference to sort of the perception of how Picard is being viewed by Starfleet at that time.
Just to put this up really quickly, David Willett has to get back to work because it's middle of the day in Australia. We didn't know you were chatting with us from Australia. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Have a great rest of your day, buddy.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
Yeah,
we hope
that's
to see
really
you on
cool.
Earth Station Trek sometime.
Yeah. I don't know what time of day it would be middle. You could do it on your lunch break when we do our live shows on Thursdays.
Right.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Tara says, weren't all the Starfleet ships severely damaged while shooting at each other? Which Enterprise alphabet would we be looking at that point? Oh.
Well, we know that the F shows up in Picard season 3, and we know that the E was still active at least by the time of Prodigy. So that's what 2383 to somewhere around 2500. I don't know what the exact date is of the start of Picard season 3, but somewhere over that 17-year period there was the transition. So it could have been 2383. It could have been 5 years ago. This could be the maiden voyage. With Harriman III in charge of the Enterprise F. Tractor beam will be installed on Tuesday. But I mean, looking back over Picard's career, sort of what are the takeaways? I mean, even with or without the Enterprise in the equation, I mean, he went on quite a journey from cadet and marathon winner to, the admiral and, the chancellor of the academy.
Yeah. An amazing career.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what you're left with. And, what a remarkable person to go through that journey with, these sort of highfalutin moral stances and maintain that, to not let circumstances change what you find in the core of your being. You know what I mean? Zon 4. Hello, Zon 4. What planet are you from? That's an interesting name. Just tuning in after seeing the tweet. Great conversation for Picard week. Nice to have you join us.
Yeah. I would imagine that's, he's a descendant of Zon from Star Trek Phase 2. So, welcome. And I'm sorry that your great-grandfather wasn't able to be on a Star Trek show.
I didn't even think about that, so I'm glad you pointed that out. And hey, look who it is. Monkeying Around Podcast says, is there anything you don't want to see in season 3 of Picard?
I don't want to see any characters die.
No, I think you're probably going to be out of luck there.
I think you're out of luck.
Yeah.
Sorry. No spoilers. I mean, not that we know anything.
I don't know anything.
Other than Metalis has already said that,
Yeah, he said that he said nobody's safe.
Right.
So I don't know that he said necessarily that anybody's going to die, but he said nobody's safe.
I'm going to go with he said that to make us think someone's going to die. So we're on the edge of our seats constantly because no one ever dies. There's a serious character in Star Trek.
Yeah.
But now maybe they will.
Maybe. For me, whether they die or not, I just want a fulfilling resolution for the characters. Because I mean, from 2002 to now, I didn't think we'd see all these guys together again. And now we're getting that. So even if Worf comes back only to go out in a blaze of glory, I want to be able to see it. As long as it's a good, satisfying ending for the character, I'm happy. Or if they want to leave them all alive and say, maybe, and I can hope for the rest of my life that they'll all be back again.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
That is why I watch TV. I don't watch TV to see depressing things. I watch TV to escape reality and be happy at the end. Be like, yay!
And
Right.
and here's the other thing, and this is sort of on the reality side of this, and I hate to bring this up, but there is truth to it. Do it while the cast members are alive and able.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you wait, like Chuck says, for the rest of your life and hope that they do it, those people aren't going to be around. You know,
Right.
you
Yeah,
don't
well,
want it to happen after they're gone. You want it to be the characters played by the actors.
that's kind of a TV corporation mentality, though. Like 20 years from now, somebody will go, you know what? We should do a Captain Worf series. Like, where have you been, dude?
Right. Yeah. Like, I was a kid. I was watching
Dorney has
Worf
been
in
asking
reruns.
for that.
Right. Hey, great idea, buddy. It looks like a lot of people in the comments are agreeing with you, Veronica.
Yes.
Yeah.
As they should.
It happens a lot on our show.
As Matt will say, Veronica gets a point.
That's right.
Matt, you need to say that Veronica gets a point in the comments. Just FYI.
Just to make it official.
That's
right. To make it official.
Matt is the awarder of points.
That's right.
To me.
It's the burden he bears.
Tara says, I really don't mind when secondary characters die. You need those dramatic moments to make a good story. 100% agreed.
Mm-hmm.
If there's no consequences, then the drama has no weight.
Right.
It has no meaning, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
I got 2 points.
It boggles my mind. I remember reading when Voyager came out and the cast were... Wait, is that Voyager? Oh, Star Trek 5. I'm sorry. Dumb. Okay, Star Trek 5 came out and the cast were getting older. It's been longer since the end of TNG. It's very true.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we're fortunate to have those folks still around.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And they're all in great shape and look great. I mean, I think that I'm really excited to see it for what happens on the show, you know? And I mean, and we're looking at what they've said could be the final chapter in Picard's story.
Yes.
You know, from when the show started, they were saying 3 seasons and done. Now that could always change.
That's right.
But that's sort of what we're being led to believe.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what do you think? Do you think what would you hope to see out of Picard specifically after the career that he's had and the stories that have been told about him over the last? I mean, I was watching Captain Picard when I was 6 years old. You know, that's huge. I'm 42 years old now and getting ready to watch the final adventure of this character potentially.
Right.
I mean, what is everybody hoping for out of that final adventure? Should Picard, I mean, go out in a blaze of glory? Should Picard go off and be an archaeologist? Should Vash come back? You know, should he go back to the vineyard? Yeah. Should he go to change his mind about that transporter thing and rascal himself and start over? You know,
right? Rascal himself. That's funny.
And then in a few years, James McAvoy can come along and play him going through the academy again because he did that to himself, so he has to start from the beginning. Gosh darn it, doesn't matter what he already knows.
Right.
There we go.
Another first-time commenter, Ricard Picardo, says, kill them all with the self-destruct of the F.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, that could happen. Or you could do like a Blake 7 ending and, you know, it all goes to black and then you hear the explosion and you don't know if they made it out.
Stop. That will stress me out. Tara says, people age better these days. Better living through science.
That's true. Exactly. And I'll say that I think Michael Dorn looks better now than he did when he did Nemesis. Yeah. Just physically. He's really taken care of himself and gone vegan.
Yeah. Man, people who go vegan and don't eat sweets, they look so young.
Yeah, if you take care of yourself and eat right, you do not always, but often you'll do a lot better, you know?
Yeah. Haven says that the promo pic released today, Sir Patrick Stewart, honestly looks younger than he did in Nemesis.
Okay.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Right.
Crazy. Let's see. Is there anything more? Tara says, Star Trek Picard has been trending on my Twitter for a few hours.
Ooh, does that mean something else is happening that I don't know about? And I feel like I have to go look? Or is it just everyone excited? I mean, this is an exciting time to be a Star Trek fan. I mean, we've got next week Star Trek Picard season 3 with the TNG cast, which I think that's going to run right up to Strange New Worlds. I mean, we've got a wild couple of months ahead of us.
Mm-hmm.
Haven Studios is saying that the trending is because the world premiere is at the Chinese Theater in downtown Hollywood tonight.
Yeah,
at 10 p.m.
And I will say, I think everyone, because they sent a screener to I think every single person on Twitter, from what I could tell from my Twitter feed, because everyone on my Twitter feed is like, I saw the first 6 episodes, but everyone's doing a good job about spoilers because no one's spoiling me. So please, everyone out there, if you've seen it, don't spoil me. And people who are going to the premiere, don't spoil me. We only got a week to go.
Yeah.
And how do we get on that list? I want a screener.
I don't want to be sworn to secrecy. I want to watch it and then go talk about it immediately with everybody that I meet.
I know.
That's why we do a podcast the same day.
Right.
Right, exactly. Because we can't wait any longer.
I know.
Ooh, baby.
And then, I mean, just to skip over to Matt Swetman's comment, he said, I think there's more hype for Picard season 3 than the first one. And I think you're right.
Yes.
But I think a lot of that is because leading into the first one, they were talking about how this is Picard, but not the Picard you remember. And he's not joining forces with the TNG cast. And they even had that joke in the first episode where Siobhan was like, yeah, you need to go get Worf and Riker and Geordi. And he was like, no. I was like, yes.
I know.
So I think, it's exciting to see a character. It's exciting to see a couple of characters. But the idea of, even just seeing all of them sit around a conference table discussing a problem. And you're like, yeah, man. It's my gang. It's my crew. I was watching them, in elementary school. And here they are again.
Yeah.
Right.
It's exciting.
Miss Powell says, someone on a different podcast is saying how rare it is that a cast of an old show is intact because, as she points out, Babylon 5 has lost most of their cast.
That's true.
I agree. I totally agree. And, I think it's an absolute treasure that we have those people, that core group, alive in great health, at the top of their game still. And I'm so excited to see what happens this season.
Right.
Like, I hate to be one of the, I like it when Star Trek goes into new territory. I don't like it to retread. I like it to go forward and do, but God dang it. I am so excited to see the Next Generation cast back together.
I know.
I can't help it. I hate that I'm buying into the hype and all that kind of stuff, but I can't wait to see it.
I think it's because they're not going back.
Exactly.
They're moving forward with the existing characters.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And it's not as if they're walking out in their next gen uniforms again, on the old bridge. Like they're moving the world of Star Trek forward as they go. So I think I think that's really exciting.
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to see what happens to everybody. We had another comment that just came in.
Yeah, Miss Powell says that Entertainment Weekly has a new article with Terry and the new pictures of the cast. Spoiler alert. PC relationship, Geordi and Worf info if you want no spoilers.
Okay.
Okay, so avoid entertainment.
Oh, Picard Crusher. Picard / Crusher. I get it. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm to the point where we're close enough that I'm trying not to read every piece of information out there. You know what I mean? Like I gotta save something for myself because I know me. If I walked into Walmart tomorrow and the novelization was sitting there, I would sit down and read it just there in the floor.
Not
it's
me,
24
man.
hours.
Yeah. I can wait. I can do it.
It's a good point though, that we have the cast intact because if you tried to do this with DS9, you'd be missing some folks.
You'd be I mean, not a lot, but enough that it would.
Though.
Yeah.
I mean, you would be missing Avery Brooks because even though he's around and in great health,
he's too busy playing jazz on his
right.
He just wouldn't be interested in doing it. So
but Renee Auberginois couldn't.
Yeah.
Aaron Eisenberg couldn't.
No.
And those would be losses.
Big,
feel. So,
huge. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we're pretty lucky, and it's a pretty exciting time to be a Star Trek fan. I mean, we've got just a few minutes left of our slot. So, I mean, did anybody have any closing thoughts about Picard's career or about what's coming up on Star Trek?
Super quick. Before we do that, I just want to say our podcast is just a tad over 2 years old now. And I just wanted, I wish we had counted how many times over those 2 years we have said, it's such an exciting time to be a Star Trek fan. And it keeps being that. It keeps being an exciting time to be a Star Trek fan.
Yeah.
Great
job. And we're a show that we don't love every single thing that, like, I don't feel obligated to love something just because it has Star Trek too. But we're excited about Star Trek, and every week on our show, I love that we just get together and it's like going to the movies or going out to dinner after a movie with your friends. And what did you love and what did you hate and what I can't believe they did this, but oh, can you believe they did that? And it's so much fun, and also to see where you guys fall. And Keith couldn't be with us tonight, but to see what you guys thought of the new episode. And I've gotten to where I'll watch episodes and think, oh, Keith's gonna hate that. Or Alan's gonna love this.
That science is wonky. Keith is going to bring that up tonight.
That's right. Keith's our science guru.
Oh my gosh. So what was your question? Final things about
any closing thoughts?
And
he had a good run.
Silent.
Yeah. He had a good run. He I mean, from the young academy cadet, he made it all the way to admiral and then back again. He's back to the academy by the end. So it sort of brings him full circle, I guess, in our discussion, is that the last time we saw him doing Starfleet things, he was passing on his wisdom to the next generation of folks. And I think that's great.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh man. So this was a fun hour.
Yeah, thank you, Strange New Pod, for inviting us back, and thank you for folks that we've never met coming on to watch us take the con for an hour. I really appreciate it. Like I said, you can find us on any podcast platform called Earth Station Trek. We've got over 100 episodes out now, and we also have a Facebook group, Earth Station Trek, a Twitter, a YouTube. Basically, just search for Earth Station Trek, you'll find us. But
we're just a lot of our old recordings on YouTube as well.
Yeah, and we're just a group of Star Trek fans who love getting together and talk about it. We're not the world's foremost authority on anything.
Yeah.
And like I said, we're not haters. We're not, pure gushers either. We just we love it, and we love talking about it and seeing where we all fall and what we all think.
Haven Studios says, before you go, I want to say I am now downloading your episodes on Spotify to listen to. If you ask any of the Strange New Pod, I listen to a lot of Trek podcasts.
Yeah,
well, thank
you so much.
Yeah,
that is
now
so
if you're starting
cool.
from the beginning, go easy on us. I was listening to our first episode the other day, just on our. I was like, oh, why am I talking so slow? Welcome to Earth Station Trek. I improve. Give me time.
Luckily, you get to see him now.
Right.
And then you go listen to that. You're like, wow, he sounds really strange. It's like watching season 1.
Yeah, that's my season 1 Bashir, but for our podcast.
Exactly.
I'll grow into a developed character if you keep listening.
Matt Sweatman says that he strongly recommends our podcast. That's so very sweet and thoughtful of you to say, Matt. A great bunch of folks, as you've seen tonight. Aw, thank you, buddy. We appreciate it.
Your check's in the mail, Matt.
And Zon the Fourth says, it's good to know that the TNG cast will have an ending. Can't wait for next week.
That's right.
Me too. I'm going to be in LA next week, and I don't know when I'm going to actually get to see the episode. So I'm just going to be like climbing the walls until I actually get to see it.
Go in a corner and watch it on your phone.
That's right. All right.
10 points.
I've never got a point before. That's great. I think I'm in the lead now.
That's amazing. Oh,
all right.
Lord.
So go ahead and read the comment.
Haven Studios says they listen to all shows at 1.2 speed, so maybe I won't notice. There you go. You're
okay.
Your slow delivery. Okay.
So if you listen to me at that speed, you may want to slow down when I'm talking.
Yeah.
Just a forewarning.
All right. So, Alan, where can people find more of you on the internet?
Well, let's see. I have another podcast on the ESO network. And it's called Modern Musicology, and it's a music podcast about all kinds of music topics. And man, we've had some interviews with some amazing people like Gina Shock of the Go-Go's and just all kinds of great stuff. And we've got a couple of things coming up that are like, I can't believe we scored this person. And you can find more about me at Cosmic Press, KOZMICpress.com. That's where you can see books that I've written, books that I've published by other authors, and all the podcasts that I'm involved in.
How about us, Veronica?
FeltNerdy.com.
Yep, where we perform locally here in Atlanta as Felt Nerdy. And we do family entertainment for libraries and theaters, and we also do adult entertainment for burlesque shows, and we run the gamut. But if you're interested in puppets or puppetry or nerd humor, look for Felt Nerdy on Facebook. And where else can they find us?
Well, I also wanted to mention you can see our Spock and Kirk puppet on there.
That's right.
But Also, Monkeying Around, a podcast about the monkeys.
That's
you
right.
may have seen Elaine Sweatman, one of our co-hosts on Monkeying Around, comment earlier.
Mm-hmm. Yep, we have a podcast about the monkeys. So monkeys and Star Trek and puppets, and that pretty much sums us up.
Yep.
All right, Veronica, moment of truth. Do you have a closing for us this week?
Make it so.
Hey, nailed it.
I thought of that just
no pause
now.
or anything. Amazing.
Right. All right, bye everybody. Thank you.
Take care, y'all. Thanks for having us. We
Bye.
enjoyed it. And thanks for all the comments and the great questions and everything. We appreciate the participation. See y'all.
That's right.
Hopefully even see you next year.
Yeah.
Next
Take
week.
care.
Bye.